You know what old Jack Burton always says at a time like this?
Come on, then. I'll bite your legs off!
I can take it.
Great power comes great responsibility.
We have a hope. Get to the chopper! Hanley! There's the flesh wound.
I am the father.
Just tell me one thing, Burke. You're going out there to destroy them, right? Not to study, not to bring back, but to wipe them out.
That's the plan.
All right, people, on the ready line. Are you me? Yeah! Are you me? Yeah! Where are you? Get on the ready line, Marine! Get some to die! Get on the ready line!
Get your light up here.
Keep back, don't scare her.
Movement! Talk to me, Hudson!
I got signals. I got readings in front and behind.
There's nothing back here.
Look, I'm telling you, there's something moving and it ain't us.
Get them out of there! They cut the power.
How could they cut the power, man? They're animals. There's movement all over the place. 5 meters, man. 4.
Aliens. This time, it's war.
And welcome back to another episode of the Sludgecast section Monster Movie Stompdown. This is the 12th Stompdown that we've had so far, and this one's going to be a good one. We're in between the Godzilla films. This time we are continuing the Alien franchise as requested by Mark and Ruben. We'll continue with the sequel, Aliens. Of course, I've got my co-host Ruben all the way from Texas. Ruben, say hey.
Hello from Corpus Christi, Texas.
We unfortunately don't have Mark tonight. He is having some issues at work, but we do have his Stompdown rating and a few things that he wanted to make sure and mention. So we will bring that. So it does kind of stink that he's not here, but it's okay because we got Ruben. And then, of course, joining us for this because she wanted to be part of it, my daughter, Jada. Jada, say hey.
Hi.
So she's a big fan. You're a big fan of these series, just period, aren't you?
Yeah, very.
Like, wow. Do you remember how old were you when I first introduced you to Aliens?
I was young, really young. 7 or 8, I think.
Yeah, I
7
know
or
you're
8.
it's around 8, 7 or 8. Yeah, that sounds right.
I can't remember if I was scared of it or not. Was I?
No, you dove right into these movies from the get go.
Oh yeah.
You jumped right in. So, and of course,
My
I've been
favorite
about 7 or 8 when I first watched it too, and been a lifelong fan of this series and the Predator series. Ruben, what about you? When did you first see Alien? I think we may have discussed it the last episode, but let's bring it back up.
Yeah, well, actually, this one was another one that I actually saw in the theaters, and that was, this was released in 86.
This one, 86. Yeah.
Actually, I was already I think it was 86, right? If I'm not wrong. I'm sorry. 86. I know it was in the 80s. Sorry, I can't remember exactly. 86, yeah.
Yep.
So I actually saw this, and this was a date movie type of thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. This was a movie I saw on a date, and back then, it seemed like everybody was into horror movies, and I think I've mentioned in other podcasts they'd have you'd go downtown, and they'd have 4 or 5. It'd be just 4 or 5 movies in one city. You get there in the afternoon, and it'd just be a bunch of either sci-fi or horror or whatever.
That's pretty
so
sweet.
yeah, this was actually a date movie back in 86. I was right out of high school. I guess I was about 18, 19 years old.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I was 1 year old when this came out, so just so we can date Ruby a little bit there.
Feel great.
Yeah, sorry about that. So, but yeah, so this time around we're doing Aliens, and obviously, and this is the sequel to Alien, which we did 2 episodes back, and this one's awesome. This one came out almost 10 years later. I mean, we're talking 9 years between this and the original one, and this one's got, other than Sigourney Weaver, this one's got a whole new crew. I mean, we're talking new director. Well, no, the producers and writers were still the same, but I mean, director chair changed over to James Cameron, who at the time, his biggest film really at this point was The Abyss, if I'm not mistaken, and Terminator. Those were his 2 bigger films, so sci-fi, perfect for him. So this was definitely right up his alley. But he came in the director's chair. And then, of course, Galen Hurd produced the film again, like she did in the first one. And then you got David Giler and Walter Hill, who were the original producers of the first film, and minus Walter Hill. I think it was Walter Hill and Dan O'Bannon wrote the first film. And then, of course, on this one, James Cameron wrote it with David Giler and Walter Hill, and James did the screenplay. So, really good start there. Bring in people from the original crew back and then throw James Cameron in the mix. You can't go wrong with James Cameron unless it's Titanic. That's about, well, and in my opinion, Avatar. But we won't go down that road. So this time it's a whole nother beast, man. The tagline for Alien was "In space, no one can hear you scream." The tagline for Aliens, this time it's war. And where Alien was definitely more sci-fi horror, this one's definitely far more sci-fi action. This one, Sigourney's picked up. She's been adrift in space for 56 years, I think is what it was. 57 years. She gets picked up by a salvage crew. 57, cool.
I'm kind of surprised that the cat wasn't dead.
Yeah, we were watching it and talking about, cats got such short lives. Anyways, it's like we were joking watching it last night. It's like as soon as the pod opens and like time catches up, the cat dies instantly. It's that's the way it should have been. But so takes that place 57 years later. She gets picked up by a salvage crew. Of course, there's all the legal mumbo jumbo. The company, Weyland-Yutani, wants to know what happened on the original one, and they remove her license, and she tries to warn them of the alien. They don't listen because they've had a colony on LV-426 for 20 years and with no signs of these aliens. The colony that they're the terraformers that to go around the universe for Weyland-Yutani and terraform planets so that we can live on them. And of course, that goes to crap pretty quickly because they get the distress signal, or not distress signal, they just lose communication with the colony at LV-426, which is with the planet where they found the space jockey's ship, the engineer's ship in the first one. And they decide to take a mission down to find out what's going on. A whole crew of colonial Marines, and then Burke, who's a newer character who works for the company, that's actually played by Paul Reiser. People who may not know him from Aliens would definitely know him from, what was that show, Ruben? Mad About You? Was that right?
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah.
So Paul Reiser comes in on this, and so he talks Sigourney Ripley into coming down as a liaison, so to speak, for this rescue mission to see what's really happened on here. Of course, they make it to the colonist. The colony on LV-426, and everyone's missing except for one little girl named Newt, who's one of the best characters in the film. Yes, played by the great Carrie Henn. And they can't find anybody else until they find them all together in one place, and that is the Hive. And this is the first movie we see the Hive. We'll discuss that. And everyone's pretty much dead. They've all been face hugged, and aliens have busted out. Now you've got 158 colonists, I think. So you got 157 aliens running around in this film. And crap hits the fan. And then it's all out war. And they try to survive and get off the planet. And of course they do. With few survivors. You've got Ripley, who survives in this film. Newt. Hicks, played by the great Michael Biehn. Obviously coming over to this film because James Cameron had him in The Terminator. And then you've got Bishop, who is the synthetic, or as he likes to say, artificial human, in this movie, played by the great Lance Henriksen, who's been in a lot of sci-fi and horror. Probably got this gig thanks to Stan Winston, because Stan Winston's special effects crew at the time, including Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Gillis. Tom Woodruff Jr. who played the main alien, there's not one main alien, but like all the main shots of an alien was played by Tom Woodruff in this. And of course, Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff would create their own special effects crew and company down the line that would continue on doing special effects for the rest of the Alien franchise and the Predator movies. So you've got probably with Stan Winston and Lance working together on Pumpkinhead, brought them in over for this film. And Lance Henriksen, everybody knows. If you know sci-fi or horror of any kind, you know who Lance Henriksen is. So they survive and make it to the third film after a complete just 2 hours of just insanity, tons of action. You get to see the Queen alien for the first time in this film. This movie's amazing, absolutely amazing. It is super action packed and it is intense from the word go. This one, we'll just jump right in. Let's what do we like and not like? Because I mean, it's an alien film. Most people probably know it, but Ruben, you want to go first? I think we did Mark last time.
Sure, I'll go first. What I liked about this movie is actually just about the whole movie. There's like especially once they get on the planet, there's like it's tense throughout the whole movie. There's no time to relax. Even when when it's the legal mumbo jumbo, there's a tension there. Even though there's no aliens or anything around, they're still tense because they're blaming her and they want to, pin it on. Basically, she's the scapegoat, So even then, it's tense. And throughout the whole movie, it doesn't give you a chance to relax or even kind of like take a breath because it's from beginning to end. For me, anyway, from beginning to end, it's tense, and I like that. I like the alien design. They changed it up from the first movie, but I think it was a good change. It was definitely a nice change up. I'm not going to complain about it. The acting in it was great. I thought it was pretty good. Some of it was kind of cliche, the typical Marine group going in and wanting to kick butt, type of thing. But they were all great in it. That whole cast did a great job. And keeping it tense and keeping it moving. Even in the scenes where there were no aliens, it was kind of like you expected one to pop up out of nowhere. Because even if when they're just trying to get back to the ship or they're trying to, there's just so much tension in it, and I like that. There's not much I didn't like about it. There's a few inconsistencies that kind of bothered me. But other than that, I thought the movie was great. I didn't really have anything negative to say about it other than, like I said, the inconsistencies that we can get into here after we talk.
Right. I got you.
That's all I got.
Jada, what about you? What are some things you liked the most about this film?
I really liked the fact that in the end, whenever they're using the Queen, they don't use CGI. They use an actual working puppet, which looks really good. Very...
It's real. It's tangible. It's
exactly
there. It was like an 18-foot animatronic puppet and again, Stan Winston and his crew.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know who Stan Winston is, I mean, of course, all of us here in the show are big fans of his work. I mean, you're talking Aliens, the Terminator films, all the way up to the point. Stan Winston, of course, they did Pumpkinhead, but Stan Winston and his studio is who did the first Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not just animatronic footage, but they jumped into computer graphics pretty well too. But when it came to the animatronics side of anything, Stan's crew was always the go-to. I mean, Stan, of course, rest in peace for him, passed away several years ago. The number one special effects school to go to is Stan's, to this point. So yeah, I'm with you that. I mean, no CGI. I mean, it's we were talking about too, even like some of the space scenes, it's like, or when they're flying the one ship into the into that main place there at the end, the reactor.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that looks, you even said, it looks a little dated because that was matte screen, so no CG back then, but yeah, it's very tangible, very, very realistic, which I love about, practical effects. But keep going. What else you like?
I basically like the whole movie. The only thing I didn't like is that they dropped a couple of the GDs in there.
Yeah, that was. We're not a fan of the GD word here on the show. And man, we tried to hit them all. Like we sat there with our remote last night, and I remember where most of them were, or a lot of them, and I would hit mute. Right, I did kind of like censored ourselves. But man, yeah, that was. Yeah, for those wanting to watch this with your kids, not highly recommended because they do. It's Marines. I mean, what do you expect? Tons of language.
The Marines are very, very cocky in this movie.
Yeah,
as they usually are in almost every single horror movie or sci-fi movie.
Oh, you got to. It's the stereotype.
Oh yeah.
so nothing really you didn't like other than that. But I mean, so you pretty much liked everything on this film.
Yeah.
What about the design, the alien design? Because I know for you, we've had discussions before. That's you're particular on your alien designs over these 4 films plus the Alien versus Predator films. How do you rank this alien design versus some of the other ones?
Well, I do rate the like on a scale of 1 to 10, I give it like a bit of a 9 because I think they probably could have amped it up just a little bit more. Otherwise, not really that bad.
Like this one. I love the fact on this alien design, and Ruben, let me know what you think too. When I look at the design for this one, and I'll go ahead and just jump into the things I liked. Obviously, I love the design of the alien in this film. The difference I felt watching this between the first film is, of course, it's Marines, a lot of action, is I felt the alien looked more aggressive, where in the first film it looked more just terrifying.
Yeah, that's what I was like trying to say.
Yeah, because I love it because with the divots in the skull and things like that, so a lot more drool. I mean, there's my only complaint too would be just the language. The GDs, it was very overused in this film. Other than that, man, no. I mean, what would be my complaint? I mean, I love it. I love this film. This film is so good. I think on every aspect, every character to me was memorable. Yeah, there's those cheesy lines. I'm going to agree with you too, Ruben. There are some of those cliche Marine lines, but I think they were delivered so well. You think of, you've got the great late Bill Paxton in this film as Hudson. Yeah. I mean, this is probably my favorite role of his other than Near Dark, because it's so memorable. I mean, everybody, even if you've not seen the movie, you're going to remember the line because you've heard it in another film. Game over, man. Game over. That's Hudson. He's so good. I mean, and you look at some of the other characters. Oh, what was the chick's name that carried the big machine gun in this film? Dang it. She's awesome. She's actually was in another Cameron's film. I think she was actually in Terminator 2.
Goldstein, right? Jeanette Goldstein?
Yeah, I think
so.
Yeah.
Vasquez. Yeah, Jeanette Goldstein. Yeah, it's Jeanette Goldstein. So, and it's weird too, because if you see Jeanette, Jay, I don't know if you remember this or not, but in Terminator 2, she's John's stepmom.
Yeah,
so she's got this floofy cuff, hair, but in this one she's like ripped, short haircut, just bad. Like between her and Hudson, and Hudson's like at the very beginning, it's like, "Hey Vasquez, have you ever been taken for a man?" And very quickly she's like, "No, have you?" I'm like, dude, like, it's such a cliche line, but delivered so well. And I think everybody is like that. I mean, even Gorman, who's the lieutenant, and this is actually I think they said like his second actual mission, and he's supposed to be in charge of it, played by William Hope. I mean, he's even got his moments too, when towards the end he really steps up, and kind of takes charge a little bit, and in the action he's really good. I mean, Frost was awesome in this. Dietrich's probably the least memorable. He's one of the Marines that's in there. It's just like, okay, you can just kill him. You know what I mean? So there's a few of those, but man, Apone, played by Al Matthews. Oh man, he's great. It's got such a good cast. I thought it was awesome. So I mean, I love the cast. I love the special effects. I love the story. I love the fact that Ripley had to go back to face that fear. You know what I mean? Because the first bit of this movie, I mean, she's waking up every night with nightmares, and I love the message in that. And then, of course, the message of industrialism and big companies kind of always doing the wrong thing, because you come to find out that Burke's not there to kill him, played by Paul Reiser. He's there to take samples back. They lie about sending them down in the first film, and Burke even tries to sneak face huggers into what's one of the greatest scenes in the film, a room with Ripley and Newt, to get them impregnated, to sneak them on, back to the company.
Yeah.
And Burke was great. Paul Reiser was great. You like him a little, at first, but you're like, man, he played the weasel perfectly. Yeah. I mean, so good at that. I loved everything about this. We'll roll right into the things we didn't like because there's really nothing I didn't like about this film.
Yeah.
I thought it was, it's not my favorite James Cameron film. It's second. To me, you don't top Terminator 2 when it comes to Cameron's flicks. There's just no way. But I loved everything about this movie. There's nothing I didn't like whatsoever. I know that all of us watched the theatrical or the director's cut. So I would say, because the director's cut adds so much, adds the part about, his or her daughter, Amanda, who's in the Alien Isolation games. She's brought up in it. And there's a lot of scenes that, to me, when you watch a director's cut, there's a huge difference. I mean, the theatrical version, this movie's like what, an hour and a half? No, it's pretty long. It's probably about 2 hours too.
2 hours because we
2
ended
hours?
up watching
Yeah,
till
well,
like 2.
I think there's a 16-minute difference.
16 minutes, yeah. Because I said this one was like 150 something. So yeah, I think it was 2 hours. So you see a director's cut of a film, you're like, okay, I can see why they took that out. In most films, none of this, nothing in this director's cut did I ever once go, oh, I could see why they edited that out, because it was all great. So, I have no complaints. The only complaints that I've got is the theatrical version's not as good as the director's cut because of the stuff they took out. That would be it.
Yeah.
What about you, Ruben? What did you not like about the film?
Actually, I watched the director's cut. I haven't even, I don't think I've ever sat down and watched a theatrical cut. I've always been the special edition.
I'm with you there.
Well, actually, I digress. I watched it at the theater. That was a theatrical cut.
Right.
Yeah, but other than that, and then I guess I had it on VHS, so I had it for a while there. But the only things I didn't like about this movie is the inconsistencies. But you have that with sci-fi because science fiction, they take liberties with that. To me, the thing that bothers me the most is that the acid blood from the aliens. How sometimes it just eats through metal, and she runs over the alien with that vehicle, yet the vehicle somehow, she runs over that head with a tire.
Yeah.
Everywhere, and it just keeps on driving until she breaks the transaxle. Out in the terrain. I'm like, well, wait a minute, you just ran over an alien. That acid just shot all over that vehicle. And it didn't affect the vehicle at all. So that was that just bothers me but it's difficult, to
Well, actually,
because every time there's a splatter, man, everybody should have got something on them.
Oh yeah,
everybody should have got burned. Even though they went out of their way to make sure in this movie versus the first one that, hey, wait a minute, this alien's blood is acid, and they showed it splash on people. They got on their arms, face burned off, things like that. But it was hard to keep up with that because there was a lot of times I thought, well, what should have happened there is that should have been it, because they'll shoot it, and there's plenty of times during the whole movie where they shoot an alien and kill it, but the blood splatters everywhere, but you don't see it eating at the metal, or you don't see it, when they set up those torch guns there down the hallway when they barricade themselves, man, they must have shot about 20, 30 aliens in that, at least. It seemed like it anyway, and yet there was no effect there. So that kind of bothers me, but it's not enough for me to say, oh, this movie's garbage because it's a sci-fi movie. That should be allowed. You shouldn't be realistic in a sci-fi movie. That realistic in a sci-fi movie,
right?
And,
I can see that. I agree with
another
that.
thing that bothered me was, well, actually, you know what? I take it back. It didn't bother me. I'm going to say I liked it. I liked the way they handled Bishop, the android. And
oh man, I loved it.
But yeah, that I was going to say it was inconsistent because it seemed like they were trying to set him up, but they might have done it on purpose. They just wanted a little suspicion throughout the whole movie on whether or not he was going to turn or not.
Like that scene where he's doing the autopsy on the one face hugger.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought for sure. I said, this guy's going to turn. And not only that, but then when he's doing that knife trick,
so it just came on. We got the playing in the background.
That's my favorite
wait a
scene.
minute. Are we talking about an imperfection here already? and at first it bothered me, but then just talking to you guys about it, I think, you know what? They probably did it on purpose. They wanted to keep us on the edge of our seats.
Oh yeah, because you didn't know. It kept you guessing.
So what is this guy gonna pull? Because we already know what happened in Alien, and especially in that autopsy scene, because he even makes a face like.
Oh yeah, the look on his face.
Hey,
it's like,
going?
dude, we're about to get Ash 2.0 here.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, and I go, oh, here we go, and so it started off being a negative, but talking through it, I actually think they did it on purpose, and just to keep the audience guessing.
Right.
But back to my original point, I don't think there's very much at all, because I never nitpick when it comes to sci-fi movies because they're meant to be at least a little unrealistic. You can base it off real science and everything, but we're still talking about science fiction.
Yeah.
And I think
fiction being the key word.
From that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it. That's the only thing I didn't like about it, which was very little.
So one thing I want to add too, because Jada, was there anything else you didn't like other than the language?
Just that one time, like you said, whenever they were going into that one place where the aliens were nesting.
The matting. Yeah,
the matting.
I agree.
It was just like bad CGI at that one point.
Well, it wasn't CGI. It was just the matte screen.
Matte. Yeah.
I
get those mixed up.
Yeah.
I think
but that's the thing about we're talking about the language. I think it would be more unrealistic that they were not using language versus using the language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, you got a bunch of Marines.
For me, I went right past it. It didn't really bother me as much because, like you said earlier, they're Marines. They're,
Yeah, I mean,
that's their banter. That's their banter. And,
definitely. Because this is what you expect.
So I think,
you expect that little bit of that foul mouth from the Marines, and so I think for us it's just. I mean, we just on a personal note, we can't stand the GD word. So if they drop the F-bomb, whatever. That's part of it.
Yeah.
And they could have gotten around that very easily and replaced that.
They could have
still been real, and it's down. Yeah, exactly.
But then again, too, I mean, in that aspect too, I mean, you're looking at the '80s. That kind of was just a go-to word, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you
because
couldn't.
This had, it's funny, it's James Cameron. This had a very Terminator feel to me. The way it was filmed and the way it was directed in the UK. It was very, very. It had you knew who was directing this and how it was influenced.
You ready for me to blow your mind on how Terminator this movie was?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, first off, which a lot of people may know this, Bill Paxton's in it, and Bill Paxton was in the first Terminator. And then, of course, you got Miss Goldstein. She's in this. She's in the second Terminator. But the drop ships that they use are the ships that are part of Skynet in Terminator 2. If you go back and watch Terminator 2, and then that opening sequence in the future, you'll see the flying ships that Skynet has. It's the exact same ship. No difference between it.
None.
Wow, I didn't know. I did know that they reused this set for the Ajax factory in Batman, but
I did not know that.
Me neither.
Yeah, they actually didn't tear it down. This, they reused it. What they built up. This was built. I mean, they filmed some of this in an abandoned power plant somewhere in England, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, they built the set, which they didn't destroy, and then it became the Ajax factory and the Tim Burton Batman.
I can see that in a couple shots. Now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that. That is pretty sweet. So one other thing I definitely want to add on this one is Ripley. I mean, Ripley is the heart of this series, without a doubt. I mean, But to me, prior to this film, which before this, you did have Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor, and she was a great heroine character. But you didn't have that just, heroine who was like just a female action hero who was on par with, like, let's say Rambo. You know what I mean? You never had that until this film, I feel like. That moment. I mean, my two of my favorite scenes in the film is when she goes back to get Newt, because one of the aliens has taken Newt. And she's got the guns taped together, the assault rifle and the flamethrower, and she's getting all prepped and stuff as the elevator's going down, and then those elevator doors open after she lights the flame on the flamethrower. The elevator doors open, and there's all that smoke, and she's got that look. I'm like, dude, you are freaking bad. You could take on Rambo. You could take him on right now, and you'd come out on top. Yeah. And then, of course, there's the, get away from her, you be infamous line in the, what's the thing called? It's kind of like the futuristic forklift, but that machine she runs around. Yeah, the
loader. They call it the loader.
The loader, yeah. That's the whole thing between her and the Queen, to me, was just one of the greatest sequences in sci-fi, period.
Mm-hmm.
And that was going to be, when that came up, what was my favorite scene of the whole thing, which usually comes up, is to that. There's a lot of great scenes in this movie, but that one right there pretty much just wraps the movie up. It was her against the alien, and she was going to do whatever it took. And it was great that she bonded with Newt.
Yeah.
I think it was shades because she lost her. She never got to return back to her daughter, who was about 10 years old, I think, when she said, I think she mentions in the somewhere where she was supposed to be back for her 10th birthday. And of course, she never came back.
One of the other things that I like too, when you brought up Newt, was the things that weren't in the theatrical cut, that was in the director's cut, was the extended scene with her and Newt talking about her daughter, where she asked if she had a daughter and stuff. I felt like there was more time between her and Newt that really built that mom-daughter bond. Because when you watch the theatrical version, after she saves them at the end and kills the Queen, and Newt runs up to her, she calls her mommy, and that's super touching. But for me, I watched so many movies. When I watched the theatrical version, I'm like, I could see it, but I didn't feel that.
Yeah.
But when you watch the director's cut, all the extended time you see between those two, you feel it at that point. And then, of course, the little love interest between her and Hicks. One of my favorite moments is when she goes to get Newt. When she goes to save Newt, as she's leaving the ship, Hicks is there inside the dropship, and she says, "Hey, see ya, Hicks." And he's like, "Dwayne, my name's Dwayne." And she looks at him and says, "Ellen." It's like you see that connection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which makes what happens in the third film that much harder to deal with, because you when the third film starts, and for those who haven't seen it, we won't spoil it, but when you see this relationship, what happens in the third film, you're instantly attached to those characters at the beginning of the film. You've had so much. So that's one of the other things I wanted to mention too, is that I really liked about this. And of course, that's hats off to Cameron, man. Cameron, just the dude knows how to make a movie, except for when he did Titanic. I don't know what he did there, but
I do agree, though, that Titanic was not a good movie.
And you're right. I mean, the most intense scenes have either, or of course, her, but Newt is also involved in a lot of intense things, just because she's a kid, of course. But like when she's under the grate and the aliens after her, the aliens swinging those grates off, trying to get a hold of her. That's one of the most intense scenes. It's more intense than a lot of horror movies that are out there, because that little kid's just squirming away. We're talking about inches from getting snatched by that alien, and she keeps running around, and you're like, oh my God, is she gonna get her? And she somehow, but it makes for a great movie experience.
It does. And man, and the special effects too. I mean, 1986. I look at the scene there towards the end, when the alien comes down, the Queen alien comes down from the dropship, which the Queen alien is just a spectacle to see in herself. Yes. I mean, she looks better, if not as good, as the animatronic T-Rex in Jurassic World. Like, she looks real. But when she comes out that dropship and she shoves her tail, the spike on her tail, through Bishop and then rips him in half, today that still looks that CGI, the best CGI today could not look any better than that. There's
really.
You can't tell the difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's man.
If you ask somebody, is that CGI or what, they would. I bet they couldn't tell you.
No,
they couldn't tell you.
And it's so good, so good. The special effects, just absolutely top notch. And again, that's Stan Winston and his crew, and it's phenomenal.
Well, you know, Stan Winston is just legendary. You hear his name, and it's just, you know, you're like, he's just a legend. That's all there's to. What more is there to say about Stan Winston?
Very,
And,
yeah.
You know, and who he's influenced, and you know, it's just, yeah. You know, if Stan Winston connected to it, you know, it's going to be top notch.
Oh yeah, you knew it was
Most
phenomenal
part,
from the
yeah.
get go. If he's there,
Yeah.
it's amazing. So, all right. So let me add what Mark said. You know, on this one before we give it our stomp rating. Mark stated he states not many sequels live up to the original, and I completely agree with him. I mean,
Yeah.
in all honesty, when it comes to if I'm on a deserted island and I can take Alien or Aliens, only one, I'm picking Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
To me, you know, Alien is phenomenal, one of the greatest films ever made. This one just had more entertainment value, and you know, I mean, and that doesn't rarely happens on a sequel unless you have James Cameron involved, a la Terminator 2, Judgment Day. But so he makes sure I wanted to tell him that. So, but all right. So, and we gave this, as far as stomp ratings, we gave this 5 out of 5. This is one of the very few, man, where what little negative-ish things can be said, not enough to deter the stomps, man. This movie, things about as flawless as it can get.
You know, I had to actually, you know, okay, we're gonna have to come up with negatives, and so, you know, it was rough for me to come up with something negative. I had to reach, and I guess you could tell that by my commentary on it, that, you know, it was just, I had to reach for it. This is a great movie, and I concur with you. If I had to pick between Alien or Aliens, even though Alien was groundbreaking, but if you got to pick which one is more entertaining, this one is more entertaining.
So much
and that's
more.
not taken away from Alien.
No, not at all.
Take away from Alien, yeah. It's just that, you know, this one is, you know, I always say, well, if it's a rainy night and I want to watch a movie and I have both of them in front of me, it's Aliens that I'm putting in.
Oh yeah,
you know, and
it's almost
because it's just that way entertaining. Yeah,
it's almost a whole nother beast in itself. It's so good. So, all right, so go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, and the fact that it's a sequel, just like Mark had on his comments, it's very tough to come back after a very successful first movie and do something like that. Come up with a movie that's just as good, if not better. You know, which they managed to do that. I can only there's very few. Jaws 2 maybe was just as good as Jaws,
right?
I thought, and this one's another one. It's just as good, and you know, I think the ratio is at least 10-1 on sequels that are bad versus sequels that are good.
Oh, I'm in agreement. Yeah,
it
rarely happens. And now before we end the episode, speaking of sequels that are as good, if not better than the first one, Godzilla King of the Monsters just came out, and we've got to address that here. We got to talk about it, and we discussed this before the show of tie-ins between Aliens and Godzilla King of the Monsters, and there's actually 3 of them. I just wouldn't thought about this, but Ruben had a pretty cool one. Ruben, what was your tie-in between Aliens and Godzilla King of the Monsters? Obviously, both sequels. But you had a pretty cool tie-in. Ruben, what was that?
Right. As a matter of fact, I found out about this from my son RJ. Sunday night, I was watching this in preparation for the show. I was watching Aliens, and he walked in and he says, "Which one is that?" I said, "Aliens." He goes, "You know, Michael Dougherty, I'm getting tongue-tied here, mentioned this in one of his interviews." And I said, "Really?" He goes, he said that this was his Aliens to Garth Edwards' Alien. And as far as movies go, they asked him how he felt about it. He said, "I feel like this movie is my Aliens. It's an answer to Garth Edwards' Alien and Godzilla."
Dude, and I can see that all the way.
Cool. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool because he compared the two, and the movie just came out, and we're getting ready to, we had just reviewed it, and so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's a great correlation between the two.
Yeah.
I got two more.
Yeah, I said, man, that's right. That's absolute. And not only in the fact that sequel, but we're talking about Godzilla versus then all of a sudden, you had multiple monsters in the first one in 2014, but you only had one. You only had one hero, so to speak. And in this one, you have Ripley, who's just a hero, but it's just it was a great comparison.
Oh yeah, because there's so much more. It's times 10 in this sequel. As Godzilla King of the Monsters and Aliens, and two other cool tie-ins here, just for the nerds out there that's listening, or the tech people, or however you say it. I've got two comparisons because I thought about one while we're talking. I had one prep, but I got two now. Tom Woodruff Jr., who worked with Stan Winston on Aliens. This is before Tom and Alex started their own special effects company. He's also one of the guys that played the majority of the alien shots in the movie. Tom Woodruff Jr. actually helped design the creature work for King of the Monsters. So he helped with the designs for Ghidra, Mothra, and Rodan. So that's pretty cool, because Tom worked on Aliens and Tom worked on King of the Monsters. Also, Stan Winston's another tie-in to the big King of the Monsters. Stan Winston is actually who designed, before the travesty of the 98 Godzilla film happened, there was a one coming out in 94 is when the rights were actually bought. And that Godzilla, they actually designed and had a maquette built up of that for that film. And it was done by Stan Winston himself.
Wow. I remember reading about that 94 Godzilla that never came to fruition.
Right.
But,
no, it didn't.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember reading about it in a magazine back then, being pretty excited.
I would have been
but
stoked.
then again, I was psyched for 98. So.
Yeah, stoked and then let down by that one. So, but okay, so yeah, real quick, man. Let's King of the Monsters, man. Just because I'm going to jump really big into it on the main episode this month. As far as a lot of where the MonsterVerse is going, the technicalities, the numbers, and all the juicy details. But man, what did everybody think? Jada, what did you think of Godzilla King of the Monsters? Because I mean, I raised you on Godzilla. Where is it as far as the Godzilla films? Your initial thoughts? Go.
This is the best Godzilla movie out of all of them. Like, great CGI, great story to it. Mothra is awesome in the movie. So is Rodan. Ghidorah is huge.
Oh man, massive.
And I love. I don't know if I should spoil it.
Oh man, it's been out of the week. Spoiler alert. That's all you got to say. Spoiler alert. Go for it.
Yeah, spoiler. Love the atomic bomb.
The oxygen destroyer? Or no, you're talking about the nuke scene. Oh yeah, man, the death of Serizawa. That was one heck of a scene right there. Yep. So yeah, spoiler alert. Godzilla gets his butt kicked at one point because of an oxygen destroyer, and they pump him up, man. They juice him up on like steroids, and with an atomic bomb that they blow up right next to his face, pretty much. Which I'm like, why don't you just sit there and let him eat it? But I mean, it looked cool, and that was the death of Serizawa. So wow, what a phenomenal scene that was. Ruben, what about you, man?
Well, first of all, I want to ask Jada a question. How did you feel when your dad would see it without you?
I got so mad. I'm like, you could have waited 2 days. 2 days. That was it.
Oh man.
You could have waited. You would just go see it 5 other times after we watched it that one day.
Okay. So
I just thought I'd
yeah, she did. That was
being the wonderful dad that I was. I waited till Friday night.
Boy, don't I what she did.
I did. I mean, I did. When I called her, that was her first words. You couldn't have waited 2 days. I mean, I couldn't. There's just no way. I love my kid, but I've known Godzilla.
Yeah, I know it.
20, 30 years.
I get it. But as far, I mean, I find it kind of funny how. The reviews and there's just so much out there about this movie, and I'm about as true Godzilla fan as anybody. I'm like, I cannot believe these people are actually criticizing this movie. I get it. There's things you don't like about it, but man, they're just like going all out, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, if I were to rate it, I would. Right now, I would give it easily. If it's 5 stomp rating, I would give it 5 stomps.
Oh, I'm with you
Because
too.
I really liked it. Yeah, I
I'm with
really
you too.
enjoyed it. You know, I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna try to keep it. You know, y'all gave some spoilers, which is it's already been a week, so it should be okay. I mean, I'm gonna be more generic and say that there was nothing about that movie that I did not like. I mean, I thought it had plenty of monster interaction. You heard reviewers saying that there was not enough human story to keep you interested. I thought there was plenty of human interest to keep me interested. As a matter of fact, I thought there was too much. I would like to see a little bit more monster action.
Yep. I'm with you there too.
Yeah. I'm like, fine. I think if you want to talk about it, I think negatively, I say, well, the story kind of hindered the monster, but that's what the people were asking for. So then they get it, and then they complain about it. So, there was nothing I didn't like about the movie. The monster designs were on point. Especially King Ghidorah, that was perfect. And I really liked the design of Rodan. Mothra was out of this world designed, and making her tough like that. I like that on that. There was just, I can rave about this movie.
Oh, dude.
I really enjoyed it.
I could do it forever.
Soundtrack is dropped. It's gorgeous soundtrack. It's just a great soundtrack.
Perfect timing too on the soundtrack.
The only disappointing thing maybe is I would have liked to seen an after credit scene that involved another creature, and I'll just keep it at that.
Right.
Rather than who was in the after credit scene, which was great, but I'd rather have seen something else. But other than that, that's it. There's nothing negative. If you guys haven't, anybody out there, you haven't seen it yet because you heard bad things about it, ignore it. Just go watch it. I guarantee you, it's you're worried about it. Go see it in the matinee in summer. See it during the day. You won't be disappointed.
Oh man, so good.
Highly doubt it. You will not be disappointed.
And I'm with you, man. I love this film. This has become. And now, when we talk about it, we don't, for those who are listening, Godzilla 1954, the original Gojira, it's in a staple of its own. When we rank Godzilla films against each other, that one doesn't get included. This is the best Godzilla film there is. Aside from the first one, this is the best Godzilla film. Period. There's no question. I've heard so many people say that, and I agree with them 100%. This movie is phenomenal, and the Godzilla fan base, man, and we're part of it. Me and Ruben and even Jada, she's been a part of the fan base since she was pretty much born. Yeah. We've got, all of us have got decade to decades in the fan base that I love our fan base. I love the Godzilla fan base, but at the same time, man, some of them can just be absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we're talking about giant monsters. Okay, there's a simple formula. You don't expect, a majorly huge, Academy Award winning, meta drama of humans. That's not what we want. It's monster action, and we get tons of it. The human action is great. I loved it. I've seen it 3 times now. Probably going a 4th this weekend to see it. The only complaint I have, the whole movie, because everything's perfect in this movie. Perfect. It would be not too many human scenes, but too many characters. Yeah, and they wouldn't really like. I had to really fish after 3 times of watching this film to really find a complaint. And that was just like, let's trim some of the cast. Like, you look at the army people. It's the only people I think of. You've got 3 people who are kind of main army people characters. Could have done 1. Right. Other than that, no complaints. This movie's perfect. So, I'm with you, Ruben. 5 out of 5 on the stomps on that bad boy. Big time. Yeah. So
easily.
But we're going to jump into that one big, thick, and heavy this month on the main episodes, where we talk about the numbers, the future of the Monsterverse, what's going to happen, in-depth review on some of the things. And we're going to list a lot of the Easter eggs, too, because this movie, hands down, is a movie made by a fan for the fans. I mean, it's literally like, Doherty walked in the office, legendary, said, hey, look, I'm going to make King of the Monsters for the fans, and I don't care about the general audience. Hopefully they like it, because that's really how I felt. It's like this is the movie I want to see as a Godzilla fan, and he made it to a T. So we'll definitely jump heavy into that. But of course, now the next Monster Movie Stompdown, we go right back into the Godzilla films, and the next one, if I'm not mistaken, Ruben, correct me, is Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster. Is our next one, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yes, awesome. And I'm stoked about that one. Definitely not. We'll talk about it more in the film. I know it. I think Pete Quint loves this film, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Pete to talk to.
Well, just for all the viewers out there, I know a lot of them are already Godzilla fans anyway. We're gonna get into the Godzilla movies now here that you either love them or hate them.
Oh yeah.
Type of deal.
Yep.
Yeah. You either love them or hate them. I mean, it's Godzilla, so there's always going to be some love thrown towards them. But we're definitely in the next few movies, we're going to get into the point where there's going to be people that are going to say they don't know what they're talking about. This movie was terrible, or they don't know what they're talking about. This movie's great.
Yep.
It's
completely agree with you.
It's going to be definitely a matter of taste here for the next few Godzilla movies.
Yep, and I'm pretty stoked about it too. I mean, because and we'll give our thoughts for Godzilla vs. Monster. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad one. It's not one of my favorite ones. We'll go into that next episode. But I do want to mention before we end this one, it's the first one that Jun Fukuda steps in the role, because Astro Monster was the last Ishiro Honda until Terror of Mechagodzilla. So new director, new directions going with it. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of good cast members in it, but I'm pretty stoked. So definitely check out that one, because this is different too. It's actually the first movie where there's no cities whatsoever. He's on an island. How does Godzilla keep you entertained for an hour and a half on an island? We'll tell you how on the next Monster Movie Stompdown. So, but
and definitely the word fun.
Oh yeah,
there's going to be a lot of fun here coming up.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So, all right. Well, man, that's another great one. Knocked out Aliens. And then, of course, we'll have to try and make sure we schedule Alien 3. Of course, we got Godzilla next, but the next one, because Jada wants to come back and do the rest of the Aliens with us, which thank you, Jay, for being here. Man, we thank you guys again so much for listening. We appreciate it. I mean, we do these things for fun, and I'm glad that you guys that do listen to us enjoy it, and hope you enjoyed this episode. This is Sludge.
This is Ruben.
This is Jada.
Y'all have a good night.